What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is, he's got a lot of enemies, and I really don't believe it's the government.
Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff.
The courtroom was silent, the air so thick with tension it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. We watched as Jada Pinkett Smith, a name no one expected to hear that day, rose from her seat and made her way to the witness stand. The shuffle of her shoes on the polished floor seemed deafening in the otherwise hushed room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This wasn't just another celebrity taking the stand. This was Jada, an icon, a household name, stepping forward to unravel secrets that had long been whispered in the dark corners of Hollywood.
In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and at the hands of Diddy.
Her face was calm, but her hands betrayed her. They trembled ever so slightly as she adjusted the microphone. And then came the moment that changed everything. In a voice steady but tinged with emotion, Jada began to speak and the courtroom leaned in. She wasn't just here to testify about Diddy's alleged crimes. She was here to expose something far bigger, far darker. She spoke of a loyalty agreement, a term that seemed almost benign until she described the sinister details. This wasn't a contract or even a standard non-disclosure agreement. No, this was something else entirely. It wasn't just about silence, it was about obedience. The courtroom froze as she recounted the chilling words allegedly spoken by Diddy himself. "You'll regret it in the next life." A pact, she explained, that demanded loyalty not just in this world, but in the afterlife as well. It sounded like something out of a Hollywood horror script, but her voice made it clear this wasn't fiction. Her words painted a picture of a system so deeply entrenched, so meticulously designed, that it sent shivers down the spines of even the most skeptical observers. She described the day it all began, 2004, a luxury hotel suite with curtains drawn tightly shut. The room was eerily quiet, save for the muffled hum of LA traffic below. Diddy, dressed in all white, sat on a leather armchair, exuding an air of calm confidence. Jada said she was ushered in by his assistants, who left without a word, closing the door softly behind them. On the coffee table, a black leather folder waited. Diddy slid it across to her, his expression unreadable. Curiosity turned to dread as she opened the folder. Inside wasn't a contract, it was something else entirely. The terms were cryptic but unmistakably threatening. It spoke of loyalty, of silence, of a bond that couldn't be broken. And then, Jada claimed, came the warning. If you don't sign, you won't just regret it now, you'll regret it later, much, much later. The room seemed to grow colder as she recounted those words. It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise tied to something far beyond this world.
We are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly.
We could feel the weight of her testimony, the way it cracked open a door that many had long suspected existed but were too afraid to acknowledge. Hollywood wasn't just a glittering city of lights and dreams, it was a web, and Diddy's alleged loyalty agreement was just one strand among many. As Jada continued, it became clear this wasn't just about her. She spoke of whispers in the industry, of others who had been approached with similar propositions. Some signs she hinted out of fear, others disappeared, figuratively or literally, when they refused. And then came the most chilling part, the alleged metaphysical element of the pact. Jada described how Diddy framed the agreement not just as a legal document, but as something spiritual, almost supernatural. He allegedly claimed that breaking the pact wouldn't just end a career, it would haunt someone's very soul. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as Jada explained how she had wrestled with the decision for years, terrified of what it might mean for her future, her family, and even her afterlife. Her testimony didn't stop there. She recounted a specific meeting, a moment that felt more like a ceremony than a business negotiation. Diddy, she claimed, had called it the Midnight Circle. The details were vague, as if she was too afraid to reveal too much, but the imagery was enough to send shivers down our spines. She described dim lighting, a circle of chairs, and a palpable sense of unease that hung in the air like smoke. Those who were invited were allegedly given two choices: sign the pact and secure their place in the industry, or walk away and risk losing everything.
I do want to mention one other quick thing. They can't find witness number 3 still. This is apparently an ex-girlfriend of Diddy's who was one of the alleged victims. And prosecution can't find her.
Right, her.
But Jada wasn't alone in this experience. Her testimony hinted at a network, a system designed to control and silence. Terms like the upstairs room and the midnight circle weren't just isolated phrases, they were pieces of a larger puzzle. Who else had been part of this? Who else had been forced to make this impossible choice? The questions hung in the air, unanswered but impossible to ignore. And then, as if to drive the point home, Jada referenced Diddy's alleged warning about the consequences of disobedience. It wasn't just a career that was at stake, it was a life. She spoke of sudden disappearances, careers that had mysteriously stalled, and whispers of sabotage that followed those who refused to comply. The courtroom couldn't help but wonder, how many of Hollywood's biggest stars had been caught in this web? How many had signed out of fear, and how many had paid the price for saying no?
To find her, and her attorney has said that she may not be willing to come and testify anyway, so.
Be interesting. Okay, we're moving on.
Yes.
The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about one man or one contract. It was about a culture of control, a shadowy system that operated in the background of Hollywood's glitz and glamour. And as Jada's testimony unfolded, it became clear that this was just the beginning. Her words were a crack in the facade, a glimpse into the darkness that lay beneath the surface. But the question that lingered, the question we couldn't shake, was simple yet terrifying. How deep did this go? Was Diddy's alleged loyalty agreement an isolated act of paranoia, or was it part of something much larger? Something that stretched across the highest echelons of Hollywood's elite. Jada's testimony ended not with answers, but with a sense of unease that settled over the courtroom like a heavy fog. As she stepped down from the stand, the air was thick with tension. We were left with more questions than answers, and the feeling that what we had just heard was only the beginning of a much darker, much more sinister story. And just like that, Jada's testimony sent shockwaves through the courtroom. But as her words lingered in the air, one detail stood out, a chilling question that refused to go unanswered. How far would Diddy's alleged empire go to protect its secrets? The answer might lie in a mystery that has captivated everyone following this case: the disappearance of victim 3. This key witness, scheduled to testify against Diddy in his ongoing trial, has seemingly vanished without a trace. No calls returned, no lawyer responding, not even a whisper of her whereabouts. It's as though she was simply erased.
The defense wanted to propose a question on, after the potential jurors filled out their questionnaire, have they seen any news media, any documentaries, anything just relating to a news medium, and whether or not they saw it in between them filling out the questionnaire to Monday morning when they saw, or when they go to jury selection. So essentially meaning.
What makes this disappearance even more sinister is the timing. Just as the prosecution prepared to drop what they called explosive details about Diddy's alleged pattern of control and coercion, this witness, someone who could have been the tipping point in this case, went silent. Was it fear? Was it something darker? We can't help but wonder, could this missing witness be yet another victim of the same system Jada described? A system that doesn't just demand silence but enforces it no matter the cost? The courtroom murmurs have taken on a life of their own, with whispers about loyalty agreements now colliding with the eerie vanishing act of victim 3. Prosecutors have been tight-lipped, only confirming that they've been unable to locate her despite extensive efforts. But think about it. How does someone disappear just before one of the most high-profile trials in Hollywood history? The rumors are already swirling. Some speculate she might have been threatened, coerced, or even bought off. Others suggest she may have realized the risk of stepping into the spotlight and exposing herself to the wrath of an empire that thrives on silence.
Which again, the judge kind of made this a point too, talking about, okay, well, if we're going to continue to do sidebars each and every single time that a prospective juror has to talk about a sensitive topic, that could take up a lot of time. But again, the defense and the government both seem pretty confident that they'll still be able to kind of get it going at a quick pace. This isn't unusual to do in these types of high-profile cases. So that was pretty much just the topics about, Ghislaine.
But this isn't just about one missing person. Jada's revelations have reignited questions about a much larger pattern, a disturbing trend in Hollywood's underbelly. How many women, actresses, and artists have seemingly vanished from the public eye after crossing paths with Diddy? Names that once lit up marquees are now faded memories. Careers that burned brightly, suddenly extinguished without explanation. Could they all be connected? Hollywood is no stranger to whispers. But when you start pulling at the threads, the tapestry begins to unravel. Adding to the mystery is the eerie consistency of certain patterns. Some guests, primarily women, allegedly received invitations to private after-parties held in secret locations far from prying eyes. These smaller gatherings were said to be even more exclusive, with only those deemed trusted allowed to attend. Details from these gatherings are scarce, but the few whispers that have emerged paint a disturbing picture. Guests reportedly signed additional agreements before entering, and some were allegedly pressured into situations they couldn't easily escape. The sense of unease surrounding these events has only grown, with many wondering just how far the alleged system of control extended.
Defense kind of pointed out that they will be adding 2 defense attorneys. We only thought initially it was 1, but one thing that stood out to me when Mark Agnifilo was talking about this was he said that these defense attorneys are in the courtroom right now. I didn't see Mark Garagos in that courtroom, but what I did see is 2 defense attorneys that have been there when Brian Steele came on board, and those 2 defense attorneys.
Hollywood's culture of secrecy has always been its shadow side, but these allegations allegations suggest a level of orchestration that feels almost systematic. Jada's testimony has prompted a renewed scrutiny of other high-profile events linked to Diddy, including his infamous white parties. Once celebrated as the pinnacle of exclusivity and glamour, these gatherings now seem tainted with suspicion. What once looked like harmless decadence has taken on a darker hue, with some questioning whether these events were also used to recruit or entrap individuals into his alleged network. The parallels between these parties and the loyalty agreements are hard to ignore. For years, the whispers about Diddy's exclusive parties have circulated among insiders, but Jada's testimony has brought them back into the spotlight with chilling new context. These weren't just glamorous gatherings for Hollywood's elite. They were allegedly stages for manipulation and control. Sources describe invitation-only events where the rules were clear: no phones, no cameras, and no questions. Attendees signed agreements to ensure total discretion, and once inside, the line between indulgence and coercion blurred. It wasn't uncommon for attendees to leave the parties visibly shaken, some never returning to the public eye. What really happened behind those locked doors, and who else might be keeping quiet out of fear of what could happen if they spoke out?
The judge didn't go into not really the judge, the government didn't go into too many details about the extent of the plea offer, but one thing that they had said was pretty much that under the plea offer, he would be facing less time than he's facing if he would have gone to trial. So when the allocution portion came, Diddy stood up, the judge kind of read him everything that he had needed to read to him, just about whether or not he was a...
The rumors about these parties often include accounts of blackmail. Behind the scenes, it's said that incriminating evidence, photos, videos, or even audio recordings was used to keep everyone in check. Some guests left with the uneasy feeling that they had been watched or recorded without their knowledge. These allegations have raised questions about whether the parties were less about celebration and more about control. Was this how loyalty was enforced? Were these gatherings a way to ensure silence by collecting leverage on those in attendance? It's a theory that's hard to ignore, especially with so many careers seemingly vanishing after these events. The alleged use of blackmail doesn't stop at the parties. Industry insiders have hinted that Diddy's team maintained something akin to a control vault, filled with sensitive material collected over the years, whether it was embarrassing footage, compromising photos, or private conversations. The existence of such a collection would explain how so many people, both powerful and vulnerable, remained loyal. The power of fear is undeniable, and in Hollywood, where reputations are everything, the threat of exposure can be a weapon as sharp as any blade. Could this vault explain why so many have stayed silent for so long? And if it were ever exposed, what chaos would follow?
The offer that came up in the last hearing where the government said we did offer him a deal or an offer, I should say, and that he rejected it. And now it's official, and he said it to the court as well, too. You know, he stood up, he said that he consulted with this about his attorneys, and it seems like they're planning, or not even seems like they are, they're rolling the dice by going.
Take a moment to think back. How many stars have we seen rise only to disappear under mysterious circumstances? Some have quietly retreated from public life, while others have spoken out briefly before fading into obscurity. Were they silenced by the same alleged loyalty network that Jada described? Did they sign agreements that bound them to secrecy, or were they forced out of the industry entirely? The more we hear, the harder it becomes to dismiss the idea that Hollywood's glittering surface hides a much darker truth. But then there's Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex-girlfriend and arguably the most high-profile woman to escape his alleged grasp. She's already testified about the control, the manipulation, and the humiliating situations she endured during their relationship. Yet, rumors suggest Cassie may hold even more secrets. There's been talk, wild, unverified, but undeniably intriguing, about a journal she allegedly kept during her time with Diddy, a personal log that might contain everything: names, dates, places, and specific details of the alleged freak-offs and loyalty agreements.
Jesse, we've been talking about this, just how confident the defense appears that, you know, they could get off on these charges. They could be acquitted, or possibly, you know, who knows what could happen, just because, again, you are rolling the dice. This really does feel like just kind of like, you know, just kind of like a gambling a little bit with Diddy's life in a sense, just because, you know, if you're offered maybe X amount of time versus this huge amount of time, which could be.
The so-called burn book has become the stuff of legend. Some say it was destroyed, burned by Cassie herself in an effort to free herself from the trauma. Others claim it was hidden, kept safe as her insurance policy should she ever need it. And then there are those who believe it could resurface as this trial unfolds, potentially blowing the lid off everything. Imagine a document that could not only confirm Jada's testimony, but also expose an entire network operating behind the scenes of Hollywood's most glamorous events. The fallout would be catastrophic. Careers would crumble, legacies would shatter. And Diddy? He wouldn't just face the courtroom, he'd face the full weight of public outrage. The implications of these revelations are staggering. If such a system of blackmail and coercion truly existed, it would suggest that no one was safe, not even Hollywood's biggest stars. Imagine the scale of influence required to pull something like this off. Rumors have even suggested that some of Diddy's closest allies may have knowingly participated in the collection and enforcement of these materials. This raises a chilling question. How many of Hollywood's elite are complicit in maintaining the silence? And if they are, how far would they go to keep the secrets buried?
I think possibly, you know, it's the federal government building a case against you. Maybe you would go for the lesser offer, but again, that would be having to admit that he had did something wrong. And the defense has always maintained that he is innocent, he has done nothing wrong, that this is just, you know, these are just ex-girlfriends that are mad, like just all these types of things that the defense is arguing. But
the thought of Cassie's alleged journal raises even more questions. If it exists, what could it reveal about the inner workings of Diddy's circle? Could it name other stars, producers, or executives who were complicit in maintaining this alleged system of control? And most importantly, could it inspire others to come forward? Jada's testimony has already cracked open the door, but Cassie's alleged burn book could blow it wide open, leaving no room for Hollywood's secrets to hide. This trial is no longer just about Diddy. It's about the culture of silence and fear that has allowed power to go unchecked for so long. Jada's bravery has already set off a ripple effect, forcing us to question everything we thought we knew about the entertainment industry. How many other victims are out there, still too afraid to speak? How many careers have been derailed or destroyed by a system designed to protect the powerful at all costs?
And the judge said that, you know, he seemed to be taking this kind of matter seriously. Now, I will just kind of preface it and say it. I haven't seen the documentary, but it's not out of the realm, or it's not out of the norm that she even went on this documentary as well, too, because she had previously gone on another documentary and kind of talked about her client's accusations against Diddy as well, too. So I was surprised that they brought up this particular documentary. Again, I don't know the extent of what she had said, but the defense seems very annoyed in a way.
And what happens next? As the trial barrels forward, we can't shake the feeling that we're only scratching the surface. With every testimony, every revelation, and every rumor, the cracks in Hollywood's glittering facade grow wider. Jada's words, Cassie's courage, and the haunting mystery of Victim 3 have left us on the edge of our seats. But the questions remain. How far does this go? How many more secrets are waiting to be uncovered? And when the truth finally comes to light, will Hollywood ever be the same? This isn't just about one man or one testimony. It's about an entire system of power, fear, and silence that's finally being laid bare. And the next chapter? It could destroy everything we thought we knew. What do you think is really going on behind the scenes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and remember, there's always more to the story.